Hi, this is James Cook of the University of Maine at Augusta. I'm shooting this video as a snow day partial makeup for our Analyzing Social Media course, for which I asked you to collect some data, and that data had to do with 15 members of Congress apiece, 175 total members of Congress had data collected. And what was that about? It was about, over a weekend, whether at the end of January there was a statement made regarding border policy, whether there was any statement made at all on the social media platform Twitter. And then looking at those individuals in the 115th Congress, in the House of Representatives in particular, I wanted you to look at those 174 members of Congress for which information was collected overall. And I wanted you to say, of those members that had posted anything at all, were Republicans or Democrats more likely to post some kind of opinion regarding the change in border policy? And to what extent? So this is really an interesting piece of thinking that I was asking you to work through, in which you took all members of Congress, and then we only measured some, and then only some had posted on Twitter. And then I asked you, who was most likely to be talking about the change in border policy that occurred over that weekend? Was it more likely to be a Republican or a Democrat who would be more likely to express an opinion? And so to do that, the first thing you need to do is establish counts. And that involved some sorting. We had a data set, and you had to count Republicans and Democrats who had made any kind of post, and then who had posted anything about the border and the change in border policy. The thing is that's really interesting when we do this manually is that we don't agree with one another. In all the assignments that we had turned in, there was actually a striking diversity. There were two individuals, MS and WF, I'll say, because we're not supposed to share names over the internet, who agreed that there were 68 Democrats who posted and 41 Republicans who posted regarding the border policy. But LJ said, well, no, that was 70 Democrats who did and 47 Republicans. AW said it was 68 Democrats. Okay, so that was agreeing with WF and MS, but only 46, or actually more, 46 Republicans. Jamie S. said it was 68 and 40, and TY said, no, it was 68 and 40, agreeing with JS. So that was a wide variety of claims, of counts. So if we don't agree on the counts, and who counts as being either a Democrat or a Republican who posts on the change in border policy, we can't really talk about likelihood in the first place. So challenge number one is coming to some sort of agreement. And that would be called, if we're all taking these individual acts and we are coding them as either being posting an opinion about border policy or not posting an opinion about border policy, that would be called intercoder reliability. And we don't really have strong intercoder reliability here. That's interesting. The second thing that's interesting is what you actually do with the information once you've got it. So I like two forms here. One form I have to fold over so we don't have a name is TY's, and TY's data is in a nice table, and it proceeds across, and it talks about how many posted, and then how many posted regarding border policy. But then, if you look really close, you'll notice that the percentage adds up across Republicans and Democrats to 100%, right? So the problem with that is that we're not interested in figuring out, of those who posted regarding border policy, what share was a Republican or what share was a Democrat. Instead, we're interested in figuring out something that's pictorially like this, and this is MS's work, which is kind of saying, look, if you just eyeball it here, of the Democrats who posted, right, the red ones are no position among Democrats, and then the blue ones are ones who have a position among Democrats and Republicans. It's clear just visually that among Republicans, no position is much more likely among Republicans, and among Democrats, having a position is much more likely, right, among Democrats. So that would actually be, if we calculate out, according to TY's count, it turns out that 89% of Democrats had a position on the change in border policy in their tweets, whereas only 89.5%, whereas Republicans 40.8% did, which is less than half as likely, right? 40.8% of Republicans who had a Twitter post were posting about the border change policy. That's less than half of them. And for Democrats, it's almost 9 out of 10, 89.5% of those who posted something about the border policy. So we've gotten to a conclusion, but that conclusion depends on a whole lot of things. First of all, understanding the difference between likelihood and shares. The second is coming up with a count that's agreed upon by all of us, which we haven't done yet, which indicates that the very act of measuring what it is that somebody does and what it means on social media isn't simple, obviously, right? There are some real disagreements that we might have. And then the third issue that's back beyond that is that we're only looking at a set of 174 members of Congress out of 435. Now, it turns out that that's equal to exactly 40%. So we're only looking at a subset, 4 out of 10 members of the House of Representatives, 435 members of the House of Representatives, only 174 of them. So there's a whole other 60% of them that we haven't collected any data on at all. To do this and to get through this work took us about 2 weeks, doing it by hand and looking at each tweet individually and counting them by hand, grabbing them by hand, looking at them by hand, entering them, typing them in a spreadsheet, and then trying to figure out what we're going to do about it. I've said nice things about TY's work. I've said nice things about MS's work. I want to say one nice thing about WF's work, which was really good, was the statement of an algorithm. An algorithm is, by the way, it's a Muslim word, and Arabic, actually. The idea of an algorithm is an exact procedure that you would follow. And you would know when you'd done it because each step in the procedure is laid out exactly. It tells you exactly what to do so that everybody can agree. If you can state that in absolutely pure, perfect terms that anybody can understand, no matter how little knowledge they had, and no matter how kind of difficult they found it to work with language, if you were absolutely clear, then it turns out that what you would have is something that even the simplest mind could understand. And what is that? That is the mind of a computer. Because computers are really good at understanding exact instructions, right? That are not ambiguous at all. And they're really horrible at dealing with the ambiguity that you've been dealing with the last 2 weeks. So what's our next step? Our next step is to take what we've been doing by hand and thinking about the creation of, ideas about patterns, which are really interesting, right? This is, no matter what you actually think about the change in border policy that's been happening, the difference in the use of social media to talk about it, the propensity to talk about it or to not talk about it, is, wow, that's pretty neat. Can we use those exact instructions, figure out exactly what we mean by each of these things, likelihood or posting about the change in border policy? Can we state it in such obvious terms that even a computer could understand? Once we do that, once we have that ability, we're ready to write computer programs to understand social media. That's what we'll do next.